Miss. Okay.
Yeah, Jaina will put that on the YouTube thing and it'll be up there.
Yes. Okay.
And it will be also available on the jaina.org website under Women's Committee.
Oh,
So
that would be good.
if you wanted to go there, we will encourage you to go to jaina.org. Okay, so we are going to start our meeting, and we are going to start it with the Naukar mantra as usual. So I invite Ujjwala Ben to do the Naukar mantra.
Jai Jinendra, everybody. Namo Rihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayadiyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Vesavasahunam, Eso Panchanamokaro, Sava Pavapanasano, Mangalanancha Savve Sing Padamam Hovai Mangalam.
Jai Jinendra, everyone. This is a Jaina Women's Committee, and we are having our quarterly conference on mental illnesses and the positive. Positive.
तो उसका है 851.
Excuse me.
851.
Shilpa, can you mute other people, please? And then we can unmute ourselves properly.
851.
एक सेकंड मेरा रिकॉर्ड हो रहा है वहां पर.
Okay.
So before we start, we always introduce our committee. We have a fabulous committee, and I would like to tell you about our committee. We have two co-chairs. One is myself, Dr. Mamta Shah from New York, and the other one is Pramodaben Chitra Banuji. She's also from New York. Shilpa, can you move it please to the next one? Then these are the committee members. Shobha Vora is from San Francisco. Ujjwal Singhvi, that you just heard about the Naukar mantra, she's from Houston. Go back. Madhuben Sheth from Atlanta. Padmaben Shetty from New York. Bakulaben Maniar from Los Angeles. Shilpa Salgia from Calgary, Canada. Kirtida Shah from Toronto, Canada. Kalpana Gandhi Sanghvi from New York, and Bhartiben Shah from Houston. And we have a great team and we work together very well, and you will see that we do a lot of things. So I'm very proud of my committee, and I would like to introduce the speaker now. So we have a very distinguished speaker today. For today's topic is alternative solutions for positive mental health. And we have Dr. Nalini Juthani, who is very well known in her field. She's a retired professor of psychiatry at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Besides treating people with mental health problems, her professional career of 40 years included educating psychiatric residents and medical students in her job as the director of psychiatric education. She's retired from active work, but never felt tired. She has an active retirement as she's occupied in arts, photography, and writing. She has published 2 memoirs, and also most recently, she has co-authored a book entitled Mental Illness Among South Asian Americans, which is a very important topic for us today. So 20 culturally mindful case studies, that is her book. She has those case studies in that book. She conducts and supports social and medical missions in India, as well as in the United States. She is a student of life. She, as well as a life coach for her children, grandchildren, and people in need. During her practice of psychiatry and mentoring the students and residents, she has learned that there are alternative solutions to positive mental health. She will share some of those pearls of wisdom with us today. So we welcome Dr. Juthani to give us an enlightened speech. Please unmute yourself, Nalini.
Okay.
Good. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mamta Shah, doctor. I don't know whether you prefer or not. I should respectfully call you that. So I am delighted to be here, and alternative solutions for positive mental health is extremely important and gaining grounds, more so even amongst ourselves, younger generation, as well as the people who we are surrounded with, mostly the Americans born and brought up here. So let me start by saying everyone, including celebrities, athletic people, political leaders, doctors, and artists alike, have mental health struggles. Each one of us can move forward on this mental health journey on our own or with supportive family, friends, religious leaders, or professional help. Some resort to self-help groups, self-help books, conferences like this, videos, podcasts, and selected social media as well. As you can see, that times have changed. When I started my career, it was a lot of medicines, and we did a lot of psychotherapy. And then psychiatrists were joined by psychologists, social workers, and others who were also doing psychotherapy. So now we found that there are other ways as well. And the other alternative ways gradually began to be like homeopathic medicine, like allopathy assistance, and Ayurvedic medicine. And they also got into this field. So in my profession as a psychiatrist, I learned more about medical treatments. Psychotherapy was my love, and I did more than what I was required to do as a trainee resident. And I became more interested in individual therapy, group therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, and so on. I usually laid out all possible alternatives for people who are seeking positive mental health. It was almost like my supervisor said, you want to lay down all your cards on the table and then see which one fits the patient, rather than say, this is what I know how to do, and this is what I'm going to give you. So I did not have that kind of a belief system that I should provide what I know, but rather what will help the patient. I usually, having done that, advised my patients that it is not necessary to silently suffer, because there are alternative ways to live well and not suffer. So many people in the past live in the past. But I suggested that living in the past, it's not a residence. It's not where we should reside. It is a place from where we learn and apply it to the future. We can reflect on our past from time to time, but we cannot stay there in stagnation. Then I found some people live in the future. They imagine things that may or may not be happening, or may even not happen. And then in this imagination begin to become very anxious. We all know that it is desirable to live in the moment, in the present, but it is difficult because our mind cannot concentrate. Right now, we are looking at a conference, we are looking at a speaker, and our mind takes off. And now we say, oh, she said something about living in the past. That happens to me all the time. And we lose where we are. We lose the concept of living in the future, in the present. In day-to-day life, we are bound to come across situations like this where we need to change. And so change is a word to keep in mind, is necessary. Now, change what you can and manage what you can't. Develop healthy coping skills. It is a powerful thing to do, but it is easy said than done. Aristotle said once, it is during the darkest moments of our life that we must focus to see the light. It is easy to react, but needs practice to focus. So positive mental health is not a destination, but it is a process. It is about how you drive your emotions. We have to know that we have to be the driver. Emotions cannot be in the driver's seat. So remember that not until we get lost, we begin to understand the function of the GPS. Everybody can relate to that. And in other words, begin to understand ourselves. The process has just begun at this time. Here are some of the alternative ways to promote positive mental health. Now let's first look at what is called positive mental health. Is there a negative mental health, or is there anything else that we are talking about? So mental health, we all know, is like physical health, mental health, spiritual health. However, when we begin to become disturbed, we begin to find that we are not at ease. It becomes negative mental health. And to get out of that, we need to know what are the opposites of that mental health, which is positive mental health. So first thing that I advised people is to say, do some self-therapy. So what is self-therapy? Practice positive self-talk, which means we are in a situation that causes anxiety. We don't need to react. We don't need to start looking for help. We have to first ask ourselves, what's going on? Why am I feeling different? Have I been like this before? Have I done anything that made me relief from this kind of a feeling? So now we have gone one step further, and we find that these negative thoughts keep on coming back and forth. And if they come back and forth, it begins to disturb our mind. So what can we do? We can block them. At that time, you may ask, but how do I block? How do I block these thoughts? I'm going to leave it there for a minute. Now, we have to remember that when we are talking about self-therapy, we may be in situations that we need to avoid. Avoid stressful relationships. Walk away from people who make you feel bad or uncomfortable. Is it possible? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. We'll come back to that again. One of the things that we can do as part of alternative ways to promote positive mental health is we should get regular exercise, do yoga, walking, avoid sitting around all the time, do meditation. And these are the things that will boost our mood and provide positive mental health. We must remember to eat regularly healthy meals. No takeouts all the time, no going out all the times. Staying well hydrated and sleeping at least 7 to 8 hours at night makes a dent in negative mental health. Some of the people may say, she is really an old timer. Who gets 7 to 8 hours of sleep? Younger people have told me that they barely get 4 hours of sleep. And until the darkness of the night, they are looking at their cell phones. We have to know that sleep is important. We are living in the world right now where we have forgotten all the important things, and we are running and chasing after the things that do not need our attention. We should focus on positivity through positive attitudes. Important thing to keep in mind that attitudes which are positive bring about positive results. Those who keep negative attitude for whatever they do in their life will find that it will be extremely difficult to keep positive mental health. Now, another thing to do is every day write down one thing that you are grateful about. Now, many of us have gone to the bookstores and we see that they have gratefulness diaries. Practicing gratitude by keeping a gratitude diary can certainly help us. In Jainism, we have a wonderful stotra, Kamemi Save Jiva. I like it because it sends me to look at my entire day every night when I recite it at night. I can then reflect on some of the things that happened, and I have an opportunity to now apologize and begin to do some self-talk and ask for forgiveness. It makes us feel lighter and helps us sleep better. Another thing that I advise people to do, and I do myself, and that is find every opportunity to smile. And when we can smile, we cannot laugh. So keeping this in mind, we find that these are some of the things that certainly help us. For each day, we should set reachable, small goals and priorities. Keeping big goals will lead us many times to frustrations. We have learned as a Jain 18 Papastanak. Every single day, I like to see that envious and jealous feelings are not allowed to enter my mind, because of all the sins that we know of. Invariably, envious and jealous feelings make us more miserable and drag us into the negative instead of the positive mental health. Next one is we have to learn new skills and activities. Now, those of you who are very young, you don't have time for new activities. You are already overwhelmed with positive activities that are going on in your life. However, those who have gone beyond and reached my age, I like to look at every new skill and activity that my mind can cope with. So, for example, if I'm invited for a talk to be given, I do not become so overly ambitious to start finding all kinds of slides, and I'm not looking and chasing for becoming a full professor, which I have been already. I like to make contact with human beings. I like to look at people in their eyes. I like to answer their questions. I do not want to waste my time on many of this that I have done all throughout my life. As you know, that you cannot become a professor without giving these lectures. So I enjoy giving where I can make contact with people. So the next thing I would say is connect with people, develop and create good relationships. Next thing is, if we do not meet with people, it is very hard to create good relationships. We will find some people we will be able to do this very readily, and some of them we will not be able to. It's okay. It's okay, fully okay. Next thing is give to others, whether it is physically as well as emotionally, as well as giving donations. All those are part of giving to others. I take every opportunity now that I have a little more time and energy, that even if I can do something with somebody by filling out a survey form, that somebody can use it, I will do it. Next one is culture. We all came from a different culture, but there are now children of ours who are growing up between the two cultures, and culture significantly impacts several aspects of mental health. So treatment-seeking behavior and coping skills are extremely important to think about before jumping into it and going for treatments with other people. This alternative, positive mental health should be very much considered. In summary, how do I apply these alternative solutions? Somebody may ask me that question. So I'm going to kind of put this in your mind so that if you do ask a question, you would have considered it. I read and I watched a video from where I will quote. I'm not going to show you the video, but I have some notes from there. This person who was showing the video was saying that two people, and he gave the name of Amitabh Bachchan and Shashi Kapoor. The issue was, one was saying, I have all these different kinds of cars. What do you have? Now remember, this question has a meaning, right? If I have this, how about you? The other one responds and says, I don't have any of these cars. So the first person says again and says, well, if you don't have all these cars, then what do you have? He says, I have a parking space. Now think about it. We all live in New York, those of us. Without having the parking space, none of our cars are of any use to us, because we'll be going around in Manhattan, round and round in circles. So I thought that was a very interesting, very simple-mindedly given, but then what it followed was, we talked about the car. So let's look at it as an acronym. C stands for change, which I have described about, earlier. Identify what can I change? Because if we are always talking about change, we are talking about change in another person. I'm not talking about change in myself. How can I be not perfect? I am perfect. It's the other person that needs to change. That's where the problem is. So try your best. But sometimes you may find that those changes are not changeable. For example, we go to a doctor who tells us that a loved one is dying from cancer. Now, no matter what we do, we always try our best. We may try for Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathic medicine, do other aggressive treatments, but the fact remains that the loved one is dying. A change is coming. Second one is acronym is A as an apple. It is also called accept. Accept what you cannot change. It is one of the important aspects of spirituality that we have to accept. Third is R. Remove yourself from that relationship, from that situation. And what if you cannot remove yourself from this situation? Now what do? We have tried everything. Well, at this time, last one is to rise above. It is also an R, but we are to rise above. It is the most important contribution of spirituality in the modern times. Religion has boundaries, while spirituality is beyond boundaries, and it is very much universal. It relates to people of all religions. We may have different kinds of words and scriptures, but we all eventually end up in spirituality. So with this, Mamta, I promised you 30 minutes, and so I will stop here. Thank you very much, everybody, for giving your full attention.
Mamta, when you're
Mamta, you
muted.
Yes, I admitted. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nalini Ben. It was very nice talk, and I'm sure that everybody has related to all the things that you have said. Mostly it is like doing the spiritual things to go over these things to make it positive. And that is what the basis of the whole positive mental health is. But I'm sure that people have some questions about maybe some adjuvant therapy kind of thing. If you can have anything that you can talk about, that it can also help people who, everybody is not able to do meditation the way it should be done, or they're not able to calm down as easily as somebody can. They're going through a lot of problems in the family that they are for themselves or whatever. And if they're not able to do that, what are the other things they can do? Because yes, focusing, rising above, meditation, all these things are very, very good, and everybody should do it. There's no doubt about it, and everybody should try to do that. But in case, what are the other things that can be helpful in adding to this, that can make you move slowly towards doing that meditation, everything that can help, if you may?
Mamta, shall I wait until Shilpa said that questions will go in chat, and when she calls upon the speaker, that's when we address these questions?
Yes.
No, yeah, Nalini, you can probably answer that one question, and then I'll call upon everybody else to, I haven't seen any questions in the chat yet, but I think once you answer Mamta Been's question, we'll probably get some more. I also have a question, so I might ask that after.
Okay. All right. So everybody cannot do meditation. And that's not the only way to get positive mental health. Meditation is old, but it is relatively new. It is old for us Indians. We heard that many, many times. The first meditation that I learned how to do was at the age of 15. And that was from, some of you have known this name from Virayatan, and that is Acharya Shri, as we call her. And she had taught me, and she had taught me that when somebody is able to reach beyond that their self, they may see some things that can scare them away. And because you are 15 years old, I want to address that before we go any further. And she described that when we are not at the level where we are in our house right now, let's say, and we go a level beyond that, and then we go a layer beyond that, it takes years and years and years to be able to do that. Somebody had told me that on the name of meditation, people say you have to do it when you are sitting up. You have to do it when your back is all straight. You cannot sit. And this guy had done meditation for years. And he says, I do it when I sit down. I'm comfortable and I'm able to do it. Another one said, how do you do meditation? When I start, I'm there for about 2 minutes and then I fall asleep. And that's not unknown, that people may not be able to sleep at night, but when they start meditation, they can fall asleep. So meditation requires long time to practice. And there is nothing wrong in practicing for a short time, but you have to know where you are and what you are doing. So when you start out, you have to have a clock in front of you. After 3 minutes, if you find my mind has taken off and I'm thinking about, oh, I was supposed to do that and I forgot, your meditation is already open and you cannot continue that. So after that 3 minutes, the next time when you do, you try to do it a little longer and a little longer and a little longer. And so meditation is to focus. Meditation is to concentrate. And as you can do that longer time, you will be able to reach meditation. So it's not something that is going to come immediately. Another thing I want to tell you about is yoga. I have been doing yoga since 2006. Before that, I did not have any time to be able to do that. I went to a class, and in that class, I learned different aspects of doing yoga. You know, there is Chinese yoga, there is Korean yoga, there is Indian yoga, and so on. And when a pandemic with COVID began to take our attention, there were a lot of people who were doing it on Zoom. And I did it for 3 years in a row without interruption. And it was every single day. A time came when I had learned from Korean yoga and Indian yoga, and I put them together and made it my own yoga. So now what I do every day, and the day when I cannot do it, I'm very upset. My husband can tell, what happened? You didn't do your yoga today? So I have been doing, and I encourage people to do that, because there is no one yoga for oneself. There are multiple things that one can do. And so doing it means that it has become part of you. That is why you are able to do it. And it is a pleasure. One thing that not everyone does it is, I do yoga with my eyes closed. And some people are very surprised. They say, how can you do that with eyes closed? It has become part of me, so that I can easily do it with eyes closed. Mamta, is there anything else that you were saying? How do I do it?
No, my question was that, is there anything, because what happens anytime you go, one very most important thing we have to take away from our community is that going for mental illness help. If we are going for the mental illness help, it is taken as a taboo. How we can remove that? The thing is that
taken as what?
It is taken as a taboo in the
Taboo. Well,
and then they don't want to talk about it because it is always pushed under the rug. That is one very important thing that everybody has to see that it is not really something like that. Second thing is that whenever anybody goes, even if suppose somebody says, okay, I'm going to go find the help anyway, I don't care what people say. When they go, or what we have seen in the modern medicine time is that they will be always given something, medication, and done with it, kind of. You know, that is the kind of thing going on mostly. So how you can really find a balance that what is right for you, and what would you say? Because after your lecture, I know I have to do the meditation. I know I have to question myself where I'm going, negative thoughts, positive thoughts, and everything. But what happens when I'm not able to control that for myself and I'm looking for help? Then what kind of help will be right thing for me, and where should I go and how I should take it?
okay. Great question, Mamta. It started when I was in my training years in 1975. Stigma is a never dying kind of a thing. It is there, it was there at that time, it is there now, and it probably will be in the future. It is the people who have to do this, have to realize that what is important to me. Should I suffer or should I get help? And who can help are the family members and so on. In my private practice, in spite of I had a full-time job, private practice was very small. That was because nobody wanted to do therapy or treatment with Indian patients. And I did a study. It was not a publishable study, but it was a study where I asked Indian psychiatrists, if you would, given a choice, if you would treat an Indian patient or non-Indian, 100% said a non-Indian. So what was the reason for that? The reason was they don't want to pay. That's number one. Insurance does not cover a large amount of money. That's number two. Number three is everyone in the family would come to your waiting area and they all want to talk with you. If I take 15 minutes for any of my non-Indian patients, prescribe a medicine, I will get whatever is the amount at that time. And an Indian patient, I will get nothing. This was a unanimous answer, which led me to think that if I will not help my own kind of people, then who will? So how will I find, are these issues not my issues? I said, yes, they are my issues as well. So I started to study. That was always my way of finding out how can I do it better. So one example is, I had a patient who was not brought in by themselves as it would be in the American crowd. They were brought in because the friend of an uncle suggested that you see a psychiatrist. So the call was received by me by the friend of the uncle who did not have all the information, but said, this person needs to see you as a psychiatrist. So I said, I'll be delighted to see you. But on the other hand, I need to talk to the patient. If I don't talk to the patient, I give you an appointment and the patient doesn't come, then what will I be doing? Wasting my time. So please ask the patient to call me. That did not occur. And that case did not go any further than the initial talk with the friend of the uncle. Number two, a patient agreed to come and came to my office. But with the patient, there were 5 people: father, mother, brother, sister, and the uncle. And they said, Doc, we have something very important to tell you. You have to listen to this one. Everybody had something very important. So I learned from that where my colleagues are coming from is you don't have time to spend that much with all the patients that come in. So what I decided to do, and this is not written in any book, this is my own personal experience, how I went about, and then made presentations all over American Psychiatric Association. And those people who were Americans looking at our patients were like, really, you do this? I have no idea how these people have ideas about Mataji, and they have this in their mind, and I would just give the medicine and finish. So they don't understand. It's a cultural issue that they would not understand. I understood that it was my duty to help them. So what I did was I called the friend of the uncle to come in, and I said, I have reserved the whole day for you. Everybody can come in and everybody can talk as much as they want. My charges are per hour that much. And you can use as many hours as you need because you have important things to share with me. I will start with the patient. I started with the patient, and usually I see the patient for 45 minutes. I saw the patient for 30 minutes. This was the first time. Right at that time, there was a knock on my door, and that intermediary person said, patient will come back next time. Can you please take this one? And the mother came in, and tuck, 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 there was another 5 minutes and out she was. Another 5 minutes, father was out, brother was out. Everybody was out within that 1 hour that they were going to pay me for. When I presented this to my American Psychiatric Association colleagues, they said, oh my God, you are smart. And I said, you know what? Rather than not see the patient at all, why not tell the patient that you have also a life to live, that you cannot be doing this for a whole day, and then hear that I could have talked about this with my grandmother. Yes, very true. I learned most of my psychiatry from my grandmother, who taught me what is psychotherapy. All the people that I have learned from, did not give me that common sense psychotherapy that my grandmother taught me. So there is some truth to that. If I go any further, Mamta, it will be into now talking about medicines. Medicines are hated by every patient because medicines have side effects. And these side effects are inversely proportionate with neurological condition called Parkinson's, because some of our side effects produce Parkinson-like symptoms. They get tremors and things like that. You have to take the medicine prescribed by the psychiatrist and by the neurologist and see that you are going to balance that. If you don't do that, it will be very hard to treat just by one or the other. Right now, I do have a patient who gets either into psychosis or goes into Parkinson. So that is very likely that it will happen. So you have to educate the patient. You have to educate the family, because a depressed patient of mine, a young guy, told me that he tells lies to his parents. And I said, lies? He says, yes, they would not allow me to come to see you because they believe that psychiatrist is to be seen only if you have severe, unbelievable kind of symptoms. And he says, I've gotten so much out of this treatment that I want to keep on coming, and I will pay you for your fees. Please do not mention it to my parents. So you see what I'm talking about? We are not talking about a simple issue of just stigma. That is why it is there forever. And young generation has been doing extremely well. I have done some psychotherapy, meaningful, couples therapy, meaningful with younger people, and things have gone extremely well.
Thank you, Dr. Jitani. It's, I think, time for to open it up to Q&A from the audience. And Madhuben, I see your hand up. I'll come to you in a minute. We have a question on the chat, and Uma Ben is asking, how much can we depend upon time is the best healer without doing any self-help? And are the self-help practices proven to bring mental progress or healing? So your thoughts on that?
Yeah. If you look at any aspect of mental health as from absolutely trivial, an argument with somebody and you are upheaval, your colleague at work did not treat you right. Things like that can be addressed by simple self-help. Talking to friends, talking to a colleague, doing self-therapy, is perfectly okay. If it goes any further, that it interferes in your day-to-day life, meaning you don't feel like eating, you don't feel like drinking, you don't feel like going to sleep, you're just there in bed, but you cannot get sleep. You are putting on weight. You have no idea why you look so disheveled. People ask you, you don't look like yourself. Something's wrong. That's the time you have to go for professional help. Professional help are of two different kinds. One is where you need medicine. Another one is you can talk about it and you can get therapy if it is really pointed towards a person. For example, within the family, a husband and a wife, you can do couples therapy. If it is related to a child that you are extremely worried about, you could take the child as well as yourself to see a adult psychiatrist, or you may have to even go to a child or adolescent psychiatrist. So as you can see, depending on what the situation is, if you can tell that it is not interfering in your day-to-day life, then you can continue with the self-help ways of doing it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jitani. Madhuben, on to you, please.
Yes, I just have a question that usually seems like all of these things they just go on forever and ever. And and also the medication seems to be, the person has to take the medication all the time. So how do they wean themselves off? It's just like what just now what you said. It's so scary. I had no idea that this medication can also, cause Alzheimer's. So
Not
how
Alzheimer's. I didn't say Alzheimer's. I said Parkinson.
Parkinson and also Alzheimer, I thought I heard that.
No Alzheimer's. Has nothing
Oh.
to do with psychological conditions.
Okay.
Alzheimer's can give to psychological conditions. If you can't remember, if you get lost on the street, if your children are saying, I'm going to leave you here in this room until I come back in the evening, please do not go anywhere, I'm putting the lock on. Well, I would get Alzheimer's too, I think. So Alzheimer's is a whole different kind of an entity.
Okay, maybe it's Parkinson. But what I'm saying, this medication are so, to me, scary, So how do you wean yourself off and try to get better, eventually?
So it depends upon what is the reason why you are taking that medicine. For example, if you have diabetes, means high blood sugar, you would have to take the medicine for almost ever, right? You may have to take less dose, titrate that dose, but you would have to take it. Not too many people complain about it, do they? They don't.
No.
If you have high blood pressure, you have to take that medicine forever. You have to see the doctor every 3 months to make sure that you are not getting too high or too low, and your blood pressure is staying more at a balance. Does anyone complain about that and say, I don't want to take it for high blood pressure? Not really. But psychiatric conditions are such that you don't have that many lab tests. You don't have anything. You only see, you take it, you look better. You don't take it, you look like nobody wants to go out with you, right? So psychiatric conditions are such that people feel like, why should I take it forever? You know what I mean? Most of the patients will say, all the research that's going on, nothing is being done for psychiatric conditions. Do you think there is any hope? And I would say, yes, there is hope. Never take away anybody's hope from their life. The hope also means many things. If anyone is able to do things that they were not doing before, that's hope, right? If somebody has to feed you every day, instead of that, you are able to feed yourself through this medicine, that's called hope. So we don't want to expect in psychiatric conditions that hope will end up to be from today, tomorrow you will be able to run for presidency. You will not. So keep those things in mind and see psychiatric conditions. India has done extremely well, believe it or not. In India, many of the people are employed well. If there is a business of a family, they would say, I'll give your son a job. He will go to the bank every day and deposit these checks and come back. He feels good about working. He may get trivial amount of money, but that is a great way in which the family, the community comes together and said, we are not going to dump this person. We are going to help that person out. In here, it's a little different because we look at all the other help that we get. Like many of the patients who have governmental help, people would say, Why do I have to pay for that? I'll go to a doctor who accepts governmental help, right? And people have to go. They don't want to go to a psychiatrist where they have to pay. Let the government pay for this. So we
Yeah.
should also look at what is our role? What can we do to make it a little bit easier for these people?
Thank you, Dr. Chani.
Thanks, Sophia.
Another question that I have is from Dipti Mehta, and her question was that youngsters these days have a lot of pressure. So your thoughts on with academic workload, especially, so looking at like the teenagers and those in universities. So how can they keep their mental health in balance?
Number one, to all the youngsters, and I'm surrounded by everybody. So I have yet not met in my family who is as old as me. So I first ask them, what did you have for breakfast? And people who are running into all kinds of academic work do not eat breakfast. One person said, I keep an apple in my hands when I'm running to my classes. If I finish the apple, I have breakfast. If I don't, then I dump it in the garbage and go to the classes. My point is that eating a good breakfast is not an old-time advice that I received from grandparents. I think that same advice is good for the young people, that the basics of life, basics is eat good. Don't drink the sodas on your way to work. Means I am really fascinated when people for the first few hours within their waking up is having all kinds of sodas instead of drinking water. Means we all know that drinking and keeping hydrated is extremely important, isn't it? Next thing is, I would ask these young people, how many hours of sleep do you get? If they tell me I get 3 to 4 hours of sleep because I'm constantly with the earbuds in my ears, listening to music, trying to fall asleep, you don't fall asleep. And there are so many things that maybe a young person can even make a better list than I can. But this is what I tell everyone, including my grandchildren, that the basics of life has to be met before you can claim that you are not doing good. Then
Okay.
I would send you to a professional help.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I think the next question is more related to the talk before about the Parkinson's. And
Yeah.
somebody asked if when you talked about leading to Parkinson's, is this like a side effect? And like, is it temporary or is it reversible? Like, are we,
It's
is
very
it like
temporary.
symptoms? It's
It's
temporary.
extremely temporary. You
Okay.
take away the medicine, it stops.
Okay. So
However, do not take away the medicine, because then you become very disturbed. So what you have to do is balance, and the doctors know how to do that. You have to titrate the dose. Titrating of the dose means the neurologist and the psychiatrist talk amongst themselves and say, how much more should I give so that Parkinson is under control, but it's not going into psychosis. So do not feel afraid that you will get Parkinson if you are taking psychiatric medicines. There are so many ways in which people have misinformation.
that is
In
true.
the world
Misinformation
of
is,
Google, I think nobody should be misinformed.
that is true. That is true. But there is a lot of people who look at Google and also I don't know, exaggerate or not understand their symptoms. It could go either way. So Google
That
is not the only thing.
No, it's not the only thing. What I mean is, if you are confused about something, go to Google and see what they say. Now, if you are not able to understand the lingo, then you may misunderstand whatever Google is saying. I
Hmm.
can follow that. It is better to look up into a book. But on the other hand, asking somebody, going to see that person, I think the most important issue to keep in mind is many of us go to Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathic medicine, and there is no insurance. You pay the full amount for that medicine. But when it comes to allopathic medicine, because we know that it can be paid by an insurance, we don't want to go there.
Yeah, that's true. Next question is from Bakalabin, and I think she's asking, probably in your experience, is it true that many young people have questions about God and related endless questions? Bakalabin, I'm not sure if you want to expand on that one a little bit, if you would just to come on and
Or give
chat.
an example. Sometimes an example helps.
Yeah, Bakalabin, you there? Not seeing her right now. Okay, we might come back to that one. Let's
To
get-
unmute, maybe she may be muted. Ask her to unmute, so.
yeah, you might have to unmute yourself. No, okay. There is another one here from Rupa Shah, and she said neuroimmunobiology imbalances can create chemical imbalance, leading to psychiatric condition. Can practicing meditation and lifestyle changes revert the disease?
No. Do not think that they make miracles. Never imagine that meditation, yoga, or any of those alternative treatments can do any kind of medicine, any kind of imbalances. Imbalance is created because of the way our brain has the kind of hormones and neurobiology and immunology, and for that requires somebody to really work it up using the now there are all lab tests which also can test that, but the two are not comparable.
Yes, I'm here now, Shilpa.
Oh, good, Bakalabin. Yeah, can you please expand on your question about kids and
Yes, yes, I have this question for the second generation. The first generation was my daughter, who was born in America, and I went to India after when she was 6 years old. And she saw all those process and the people dying and going to the, and she always had that question. And she always asked me every single morning, what happens when you die? Because to her, she had never seen any funeral procession or anybody dying. Then now I have a grandson who is at the 17-year-old, is a very brilliant kid, but always have the question, because between the Jain philosophy and Jain understanding of the God, the statues and everything, she and him both cannot clearly visualize about God, even though they want to believe it full-fledged. How does that happen? Or it is true for all of them?
go ahead, Dr. Jitani, your take on that. It's a pretty loaded one, I know.
I'm trying to see how to phrase this.
Was it that
There
difficult?
are all kinds of Jains. There are Stanakwasi Jains, there are Deravasi Jains, and I'm not going to address the other one anyway. Deravasi Jains have a lot of rituals, like puja and so on. Stanakwasi Jains do not have any of those rituals. So we cannot tell our children that there is only one kind. I know many, many years ago, when I came in this country, Sushil Muni was the first one who said,
Yes, I
forget
remember
about
that.
all these Vasis. Let's become Taja. And that was the beginning of understanding that Stanakwasi and Deravasi, even the pollution was at a different time, and so on and so forth. I passed on through that phase of life. I was born Stanakwasi. And I went to Deravasi because I learned from my Stanakwasi family that they do things like idol worship and things like that. And my people had different kinds of stories. And I wanted to see it with my own eyes. So I never told them where I'm going. But I did go to Derasar. And I did the yellow chandla, and I kind of wanted to do these things. Only thing I can tell you is, when we are very young, our mind does not ask many questions. We tend to believe what has been told to us. Then we go to school, and we are surrounded by people who may or may not be like us. Who are like us, they may be still different, like Stanakwasi and Deravasi. Then during the off hours or holidays, we accompany our families and go to all the religious places, and the confusion begins to occur. I don't know if I tell you my story, would that help? But I was told that there was a king coming from another town. He was successful. He had won. And they saw him coming from a while, and somebody, like a dog, made some poops. Now, how do you have the king come by and have those poops? So they put some large rock, and somebody ran and put some red color, yellow color on it. And one person was kneeling down when the king came by, and he got off his elephant, and he went to the same rock, and he bent down, and he said to the prayers to that rock, the god, and said that all his winnings are because of the god's blessings. And then everything was over, they went. The moral of the story that they were trying to impress upon me was that there is no value of any of this idol worship. So I grew up asking more questions, never got resolved. A time came when I found out that the best answer that meets my mind is that when we bring in an idol from outside anywhere, brings that idol into the Derasar and do the ceremony, we are instilling our faith of the God in that idol. And at that point, we believe that this is God. Now that kind of set well in my brain, that what's the difference between an idol worship and a rock? So that's what I use to tell my children. And many of my children were, and grandchildren included, I have 6 and 3 children, so 9 altogether. And they have asked questions in many different ways. And I have never told them that I know everything. I have told them, together we will find the answer. When you say you know everything, they're going to fight you to the extent that you will not believe. And I knew that will happen. So I never did that. All our grandchildren and children and their husbands are all vegetarians. I never expected that. Why are they vegetarian? Because we told them, while you are in our house, there will be no meat coming in my refrigerator. But you can decide what you want to do when you grow up.
And you get,
And somebody needs to be muted. And it's my oldest one who went to an American Indian festival and saw a pig hanging upside down. And she knew what it was. And she told her friend, who was a white girl, and said, "You have only one dog, right? No brother, sister." She says, "Yeah." So my daughter said to her that, "Where does your ham come from?" And she says, "From the supermarket." He says, "No, but where does it come from?" "Oh, my mother buys it. I have no idea." "But you eat the ham, right? Where does it come from?" Finally, the lady gave up and said, "You know it?" She says, "Yeah, I know it. See, it comes from up there." And showed her that killed pig. And she says, "But that's pig, dead." She says, "Yeah, that's where it comes from." The girl got so upset, she went home. The evening of that day, I was called by the mother and said, "Nalini, my daughter says she will never eat meat. But how do I feed her? I don't know anything that is pure vegetarian." And so for a long time, I was giving her recipes and she took it. I recently met her and she told me her daughter is still vegetarian, because it stirred her heart that I am a non-vegetarian because I am responsible for partly killing another life. And that was not me. That was conveyed by my daughter, who had heard it from me, but she had processed that in her brain. And so are the grandchildren, saying the same thing. So we have to keep in mind, if we tell them, "You will do this because I told you so," American kids will never, ever believe in you. This is
Thank you,
my
Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Chani. We have a question, next question from Shashikant Bhai. I see your hand up. So if you can unmute yourself and go with that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Sashikant. Now, about 6 months ago or so, I had a little depression. And my doctor prescribed a medicine called Trazodone, 50 milligram for so I can sleep well at night and don't worry about things. But after 2-3 months, it's gone away, and now I'm pretty back to normal. I just had a full physical. My doctor says that you don't have any kind of Alzheimer. I don't see anything, depressions or anything. So you're in good shape. But now I stopped taking that medicine, and
The depression.
but how long that effect would last in the body, and what do I have to do to avoid any future depression? Or, I'm in a very good spirit right now. I go out and I do my exercise, do lots of reading, but
Age.
I'm almost 81 right now. So I just want to stay happy rest of my life. So what do you think about effect of this kind of medicine, and how do we avoid those?
So you are doing very well.
Yes.
That's what you count on. You are
Yeah.
in positive mental health right now.
Yes.
Do not think about the past. You
Yes.
had negative mental health. You took medicine for that. It's now cured. Your doctor gave you the certificate that you are cured, right?
Yes.
Am I mistaken? Okay. I would do nothing. If you start to think about it, or somebody reminds you, but remember Last time when it happened, you did not believe me, but you were beginning to go there. That is a negative person. Tell them I am not doing anything. I'm taking advice from my doctor who said I have done well and I don't need any more medicine. If you begin to think about how you can begin to get worse, then you will get worse. You said you are doing well.
Yes.
So I would do nothing. If you begin to get the kind of symptoms you got in the past, don't look for them. Don't wake up in the morning every day and say, maybe they're coming. Maybe those symptoms are coming. Do not do that. That is negative mental health. So
Yes.
what you do is you go by your business, enjoy your life. You are 81 and 81 more to go.
That's funny.
That's
No, I
a
don't
good
think
thought.
I will, if I can get 10, 15 more, I'll be happy.
All right. So
Yeah,
with your
because-
attitude, see, you have a very positive attitude.
Yes.
With your
yes.
attitude, you will go to the level you want to go. But do not be surrounded by anyone who tells you, but you can get there again. You can be like that again. Don't look for those negative symptoms. They are
Okay,
not
thanks.
there now. Look in the present, look in the now.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
that's very nice.
smiling. Keep
Thank you,
smiling.
Shashikant Bhai. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
that question.
You're welcome.
Dr. Chitani, I have one question for you. Actually, two questions, two-part questions. One is, what are your thoughts on CBT? CBT as a therapy,
As a therapy.
cognitive behavior therapy. And the
Yeah.
second question that I had was more related to, I've come across some of our younger second generation Indian kids, and they have a hard time communicating with their parents. Like you said about this, like, when they are going through depression, they don't want their parents to know. But how do we make it possible that they can explain to their parents and communicate with their parents where both sides would understand that this is a real issue and it's not a made-up thing, and the kids really need help? So two different questions, but if you can address them both, that would be great.
Yeah. Remember one thing, that the parents are from a different culture. They came here. And what happens to culture when we go from one culture to the other? You probably have heard this before, and that is, we bring the culture with us. We do not get our culture away from us. And so we have left the country, but we have not left the culture. Most of us have kept the culture. Now, you know that the second generation knows that we are frozen in time. That is the phrase that is being used. We are frozen the way we left India. I left 50 years ago. I am looking every day if I'm frozen in any areas. It is not good to be frozen. Keep the positives, but do not keep the negatives. You are dealing with children. They are born and brought up here. They do not understand what you're talking about. They understand what is mental health from they are elementary school children. We are the ones who went to the schools and told them, you must teach the children, and they have done it well. So when children are saying something and parents don't understand, I am kind of reluctant to say it's the child's fault. It's the parents who have to go along. That is why most of us psychiatrists would call the family, the parents, and see where the parents are at before you start to give them treatments. So that's number one. And second thing you are saying is, how do children talk to their parents? Well, they would have to go to the therapist first and say, can you invite my parent and then talk to us together?
Okay.
Because they will come if the therapist calls them. Then the therapist can find out. I've done that many times. When the therapist finds out, then they can begin to address that. So for the time being, it would become a family therapy. Now, cognitive behavior psychotherapy. Cognitive behavior psychotherapy began to come in the picture in practical life in late 1980s. And the advantage of doing therapy is after you are not a trainee anymore, nobody watches you. You have to use your common sense. So I was doing cognitive behavior psychotherapy right from the time I graduated. Then came the time when it got a name. And I told my supervisor, now they have a name. He says, oh, don't worry about it. You have been doing it for years. So cognitive behavior psychotherapy, cognition means you know, behavior, you know. Cognition comes from the brain and behavior comes from the way we act. So if our cognition tells us to do something and we begin to do and behave like that, then that becomes cognitive behavioral. Now, people notice that you're not behaving well. They will not usually notice that you have bad cognition because that you suffer inside yourself. So what you have to do is when the behavior is not good and the parent says, you have been not behaving well. And if the child is old enough, and then there are many, many different issues, right? If it is related to not doing well in school, that's what parents are afraid of most of the times. Then you may have to go to the guidance counselors. And then from there, you have to go to a help for any kind of adolescent psychiatrist or any kind of therapist. If it is older child, which is like about adolescence, then the issues are usually with the girlfriend, the boyfriend, and parents don't like that you have girlfriend. You go out with your friends, they agreed with that, and then they will say, go as a group. How many times I have addressed that and told the parents, when they say they are going as a group, the group encourages that you two are together and you two are together. And then you become four and then you go as four friends. But two are part of the girlfriend, boyfriend. Means, you know, this, I thought these issues were dead now because they were very much alive when I was in my 1990s. I have given many, many lectures to colleges and schools to help them understand where the parents are coming from, where the children are coming from. And if I begin to tell you all the examples, you will be bored. So let's go to the next question.
Yeah, thank you so much on that. Mamta Ben, you had a question?
You are muted.
Can you unmute?
I'm sorry about that. Yes, because of the COVID, a lot of people have lost their family members or the friends, or people also lose people from, death, or, even in younger generation, we see from divorces, people become lonely. And that loneliness is such a big problem for people to deal with. And what can be the easiest thing or something to be done? Yes, go ahead, make some more friends and make this. But a lot of times even people have friends and they cannot get those friends to call them even. Sometimes this happens over the time period and it keeps on going into such a vicious cycle that they just are not able to come out of that. So what will be the good thing to do for them and how they can work with that?
So first,
this
we
is a
got
big
to
problem
understand.
I see right now, a lot of
So
people
first thing we need to understand what is loneliness, where it comes from. So loneliness is internal as well as external. External loneliness is when the child does not have friends, when the child is not having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever it is. The child has sexual problems. It is a big one these days. And they try to stay away from other kids in the class. They may do well in academically, And when they do well, parents are less concerned until the loneliness begins to become an issue. So loneliness is in my opinion, the biggest issue of our time right now, whether it is with children or it is with adults or it is with elderly people. I just returned from India and I found that elderly people are extremely lonely. And people who are rich, they are able to hire 2-3 helpers, but then they are getting tired of talking to them in the same kind of a language. They want to have some better ways of getting rid of the language. Am I correct, Madhuben? You are smiling. So that is an issue. It is an issue here. We are trying to get rid of that issue because we are all becoming elderly, or we have become elderly. We are able to drive. And people who are able to drive can go around and they meet friends, they go to the malls, they do something, or they get involved into the library, or they do activities. So they're not talking about that. They're talking about children, their children. And these children are because of a lot of problems. My neighbor tells me that my son does not want to get married. And when they go to India, I don't see the car coming back into the driveway. So he's going somewhere and says, you talk to him because he listens to you. I am not going to talk to them. You are parent. I'm not I'm not his parent. And once they started to talk, they found out that the guy remained not married for many years. But because these people don't care whether you are married or not married. We care about marriage and all hallelujah with the marriage and spend as much money we have collected. But these children don't care. And what they care about is they want to be like their friends who live in this country. And we want them to live like the friends' children who live in this country. And we compare them with those children. That comes from envious and jealousy. And that's one thing we have to stop. It has been over and over again in our culture that we find. You remember when we were younger, our children were younger. I remember when my child came home and said, Mom, I got an A. My next response was, can anybody tell me? Who got A plus? How
Yeah, I
many
was going to say,
people?
what was the class average?
Right. How many people can relate to that? Mostly everyone, right? And my daughter said to me at that time, but Mom, I am so happy to get an A. I am trying to first enjoy that before thinking A plus. And I thought about it and I said, she's right. I learned a lot from my children, believe me, not only my grandmother, but from my children. And they would say such profound statements that we must think about it. When a child says something like, I don't feel like a girl, I don't feel like a boy, then you said, then who are you? You were born to be a boy. What are you talking about? We have no idea what they are talking about. We have to educate ourselves before helping our children, because this is life. We have chosen to live here in America. They did not choose. They were born here. So we have to understand there are lots of sexual problems that, it was an old thing to say that my son feels like he is gay. That's dead already. That is now the gay people are married already. They are adopting children. Means that's old stuff. Now the new stuff is they don't feel like girl or a boy. Now what do you do? Right? Am I right, Mamta? That's a big issue.
Yeah, that is there. And we see that in pediatrics also many times, many
Yes,
kids come.
correct.
Problems with that. It is not just culturally for Indian, even American
No.
parents have difficulty dealing with those things.
Absolutely.
So it is well known. But I was looking at older people who cannot drive or whatever. How are they going to keep themselves busy or not feel lonely and depressed?
you know that there are lots of organizations for senior citizens, right? You are in Long Island, so I can tell you that there is an organization called Indo-American Senior Citizen Center.
Yes, we know that. I'm just telling for the common public as to what they can do in their own areas, how they
Okay,
can go about it.
in your own area, please look out for daycare centers or senior daycare centers. Look out for senior citizen centers. Look out for, if you are a kind of person who has worked all your life and you know how to access libraries, you know how to access other friends who are not necessarily Indians, and you want to go out and you are the kind who likes to go out and have lunch. You are the kind who likes to go to the library and make friends there. You can, because now we are not working. So we don't have that level of friends anymore.
That's true.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
that's-
Dr. Jatani. I'm just going to take consideration of the time. I'm going to call upon Bharti Ben to announce some of our next sessions and offer the vote of thanks. Bharti Ben,
Yeah.
you're up next.
Can
Yeah,
I
no-
ask one question? I'm sorry, in between.
Oh,
I
who's this again?
Kalpana,
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I raised my hand. I just wanted to ask Dr. Nalini Ben. Can I have one question?
Yes, yes.
please.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Dr. Nalini Ben, I just wanted to find out, like, how do you convince, like, if you know this person is going through the psychiatric problem and he needs to go and visit psychiatrist for a session, but then, like, it is sometimes gets so difficult to convince that that person, that you really need the treatment or you really need to go and see someone so that they can help you. Many a time the person who is responsible is not ready to go, or sometimes the family members also pushes that no, he or she has no problem, everything is okay. But you, because I'm a little medical person, so I try to understand that even though you know that there is something really wrong and they need a help, so how do you convince them to push them to go to for a session to see psychiatry to resolve their problem?
I usually ask myself that if somebody comes with whom I don't have a rapport, could be a friend, could be an acquaintance, could be a neighbor, and they have been seeing my kid or whoever and want to advise me to take them to a psychiatrist. Would I take that person to the psychiatrist? Answer is no. If I don't have that faith, if I don't have something that tells me that that person is telling me for good of my child or something that I would believe in them, I would not take them either. Are you talking about a person who is a family member from your
Friends, it's either friends or a family member, and you
Right.
really know that the person is going through this kind of a depression, kind of a negative feelings, and you like to push the person to go and get some help. So how do you
So
convince them?
I would offer them what I know, and that's when you have to end it. Because for all you know, that person wants to go and does not want to tell you. Because there's a lot of confidentiality issues, and Indians are very worried that somebody they know will find out. I had been asked that question many times, and I had consistently said that I do not share any of my patients' information with anybody else. But people are very concerned. And then I found out that my other colleagues were very concerned that they would be in a social setting and that person would come over and say, Doc, I forgot to tell you that day. But really speaking, the person I was talking to is right here in this party. Do you want to look at that person? No, we don't do that. We don't do that. What we do in our office, I used to tell people I left that cap in my office. So I can't think without that cap. I can only think about the clothes and and whether it is a political discussion or it is a a sports event, or it is my daughter versus your daughter and some jewelry, I'll talk that. But I cannot talk anything about my professional life. So I think you must first establish that you are of some caliber to be able to make that decision that that person needs help. Secondly, if that is true, that you are of that caliber, does that person or family believe that you are telling them in good of their child or whatever? And if you don't have any of that, I don't think I would go and share those informations with anybody.
Yes, so first and second, if it is yes, then how do you still convince them to go to the third stage?
I would not convince them. I would tell them, this is what I know because of my profession. This is what I know because I heard it in a conference. And that person could really feel better, and you will feel better if you want to go, but it's up to you. I would leave that decision up to them to go. It is none of my business to convince them, go after them, because I will lose a friend or a neighbor or whoever. If it is a family member, forget it. That family member will never come and visit.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Chutani. I had a couple people ask if they want to reach out to you directly. Is this something that you would be agreeable to? And would that be something that we can share your information with them?
So one thing, I'm retired. I'm 77 years old. And I do not have any license to prescribe any medicine.
If they want
So
to chat with you, would you be
if
open
they want to do psychotherapy with me, I would be able to do that. And I would say I'm not charging $300 per person as most people do. I charge only for my time, and I would charge $200.
Okay.
You can share my info.
We can share your information. Thank you so
Then
much.
you can share
I
my
believe there is one more question. There's one more hand up. So we'll go to this last question before we close out. Sharmila, Sharmila Bin, are you there? So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. I just have a quick question. Do you have people come and ask about parigrah, like too much accumulation of things?
Nobody has asked me that question as a patient, but I gave some talk on interfaith organization in Long Island. And somebody had contacted me to talk about Jainism. And in that talk, I did talk about parigrah. And I did not say that that's my belief. I said that is something that I have heard, that it is part of the scriptures, and it's a part of Adar Papastanak. And they can also look up whatever they want to look at it. And I don't know how to answer that myself, which is what is called parigrah. If I have 10 saris, that is parigrah. If I have 20 saris, that's called parigrah. If I have same thing with dresses, if I have my total wardrobe that much, is that parigrah? I do it for myself because I understand what parigrah means. And that is anything that I don't need, and I am just collecting and collecting and collecting to show off, to keep on making my wardrobe richer and makes my ego feel flatter and then I think it is called parigrah. But beyond that, I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chutani. Bhartiben, you're up.
All right. First, let's talk about the next session. It will be on technology. We will have a 3 weekday evening sessions in March, April, and May. And it will be presented by Hemal Patni. She's a senior director at product development at Oracle. She's influential leader, mentor, speaker, dancer, and mother, which all the roles she balances with patience and perseverance. And we will send out more information closer to March 29th. So we look out for that. And now I would like to say a word of thanks, especially to Dr. Jutani. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. It was enlightening and informative, and it was well presented and wonderfully delivered. And we received a lot of compliments from our audience also. We would also like to thank our audience for taking out the time and spending the afternoon with us to attend this session. Thank you very much for your unwavering attention and support throughout this presentation. Next, I would like to say thanks to JAINA and its technology team, without which we will not have this platform online. Thank you for assisting in having Zoom sessions set up and in getting this meeting organized. Last but not least, I would like to also say a big thank you to us beautiful ladies of JAINA Women's Committee, who really work hard in bringing you events like this, and your participation motivates and inspires us in bringing more and more of such events. So continue attending the sessions. We will have next one in March. It will be a weekday evening session. So thank you again for joining us, and keep on attending the session. Mamta,
Thank you so much, Bharti-ben, for doing the excellent vote of thanks. On a personal note, Nalini-ben, thank you very much. I know for a long time, but thank you for giving this lecture, and everybody has liked it. To all the people who are here, we would like to really bring to your attention the next thing we are doing on digital literacy is very important for women, especially to know. What we are going to start with is very basic, to know what kind of devices are there, what they mean, what kind is right for you, how to handle them, and all those kind of things. So it will be very nice to know the basics of the technology. And from there you can grow up. And if anybody has any problems, this will be the very informative, very nice sessions. Our the group leader, Hemal Patni, who is from Oracle, is excellent in doing this. And we would really appreciate if you all could join that. We'll give you all the information in coming weeks, and that will be given on the JAINA newsletter. So please look for that. And also we'll putting on the groups, all the WhatsApp groups and everywhere. And I would appreciate everybody joining there, and it will be really good for you. That is it. If you have any suggestions or comments, please send it to us. We have our women's committee at jaina.org email address, and you can always reach us. All our committee members are there. Anyone you can reach, and that will be very much appreciated. And we really appreciate today's attendance by everyone. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. And my committee, great job. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mamta Ben.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mama.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mamta. And
And,
Shilpa.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank
and
you.
I will